So let's wrap up this report, summary of this report, by reading out the recommendations for integrating ecosystem-based adaptation into national adaptation plans. Recommendation 1, use an ecosystem lens. So how you view ecosystem, or how you view national adaptation plan, and how you strategize it and develop the plan, and who are the stakeholders, etc., will not really pay attention to the ecosystem unless there is somebody who knows how to use an ecosystem lens as a part of the environment that needs to be saved and protected against climate change impacts. There are definite advantages to integrating EBA into NAPs, although EBA is not appropriate to every situation. Nevertheless, it is always worthwhile to examine possible adaptation options through an ecosystem lens, which means identifying the ecosystem context of the vulnerable communities that need to be protected from climate change impacts, assessing the ecosystem services that are affected by those impacts, and considering whether a nature-based response should provide the desired level of protection. So let's say you have some indigenous group or even non-indigenous group that is making its livelihood from forests, and forests are getting severely affected by climate change. Of course, there are deforestation efforts, developments impacting forest protection and so on, but we are talking here mostly about climate change adaptation. So climate change obviously has had many negative impacts through temperature and precipitation changes on even protected forests. So human beings may not be doing anything, but climate is doing something. But of course, climate change is created by human beings. So in this sense, the livelihoods of those who depend on that piece of forest will require an ecosystem lens. You cannot simply displace them or expect them to continue to make a living on a forest that's not going to survive, right? So that ecosystem lens in developing EBA is important, and also making sure that it goes into the NAP. So recommendation 2, have the right expertise and voices involved at all stages of the NAP process to help for a full conceptualization of the impacts and risks of climate change and the range of adaptation solutions possible, bearing in mind that different actors may be needed at each of the 3 stages. So as we said before, the experts who develop the NAP and lay out the implementation plan may not necessarily be the same people to actually implement it, and also those who have to worry about cost-benefit analysis and so on as well. Recommendation 3, combine indigenous and scientific knowledge. For generations, indigenous communities have used many EBA measures as coping mechanisms. Consultation with village elders and other indigenous leaders can often identify knowledge about ecosystem structures and functions that have evaded modern scientific inquiry. So typically the people who are studying in a formal education system the ecosystems, their integrity, their biodiversity, their ecosystem services and so on, may be doing it from far away. They're using data from there, maybe satellite images and so on, or previous literature on that, and they may never actually visit that ecosystem. Let's say in worst cases it's an Arctic ecosystem. Not many will actually go to the Arctic, but they will have lots of analysis on it. But people who actually live and have experiential knowledge and corporate memories of the functioning of the ecosystem and its structures, and what they have witnessed in terms of climate change and how the system responds to changes, natural or human-made. Often they don't know whether it's natural or human-made, but they may tell you very good narrative stories on how things are changing and how the ecosystem is degrading or adapting and so on. Recommendation 4, identify and value co-benefits. One of the main attractions of EBA compared to infrastructure options is that EBA usually provides multiple co-benefits such as biodiversity protection. While some of these co-benefits may be difficult to quantify regarding the additional economic value they provide, they may sway the decision towards EBA even where the economic rates of return are less favorable than for infrastructure options. Conversely, many EBA measures are also no regrets interventions, as they will deliver multiple benefits no matter how quickly climate changes. So the example of using ecosystems as natural filters for water supply downstream is a good example of how ecosystem is providing you a service of filtering the water and creating potable water for the downstream community, but that community may also be very eager to enjoy the ecosystem that is being used for filtering the water. It could be wetlands, streams, all kinds of natural forests and so on. So you have multiple co-benefits, and many times no regrets interventions means it doesn't it's not a zero-sum game that you moved resources from somewhere to here, that you could do this anyway without affecting anything else in the calculations, and yet they end up delivering multiple benefits even when the climate changes quickly. Okay. Recommendation 5, empower public participation at all stages. While it is common practice to insist on public participation at the formulation stage, the public is often less involved at the implementation and review stage. Many EBA measures require ongoing maintenance to maintain their adaptation effectiveness, like ecosystem for water filter. If it degrades and is not filtering the water as much as you want, then it needs to be maintained and made sure it functions as it is supposed to. Public understanding and buy-in to provide voluntary inputs and or day labor for such maintenance will help to avoid eventual maladaptation. Similarly, at the review stage, local observers can monitor and report on changes in the ecosystem that suggest the need for an adaptive management response. So 2 more recommendations. Devise appropriate metrics and indicators. This is always very critical, because if you create an adaptation and you leave it there and you have no way of evaluating it, monitoring it, and assessing progress, then you have not done a good job. Setting quantitative targets and establishing a firm baseline are essential for results-based adaptive management. Ecosystem-related targets may already be established at the national level, example in national biodiversity strategies and action plans. A detailed MERL plan that allows for complexities of EBA should be developed at the formulation stage and be part of the NAP documentation. And again, I forgot what is MERL, so I will read this one and then tell you what MERL is. Use the review stage as input to NAP updates. Using the concept of adaptive management, MERL results should be relatively frequent and allow NAP to become a living document, so it's constantly updated and adapted. The lessons learned from EBA will be more nuanced and require more careful investigation than from infrastructure adaptation. Infrastructure is, hard structures that you put in place, and ecosystem is evolving and it's a living entity. Consider using an expert committee to examine the MERL results and propose an adjustment in the EBA approach to make it more effective. So next we'll move to this, but let's just quickly search right here what MERL is. Here is my document, living document, that I have left open. So here it is in fact monitoring, evaluation, review, and learning. So usually for NDCs and so on, there is an MRV process: monitoring, reporting, and verification. Here we are talking about EBA, which requires monitoring, evaluation, review, and learning, so that the EBA and NAP together can be constantly updated from lessons learned from what was done. So this is what we call learning by doing, or adaptive management. Okay, so let's leave this podcast here and wrap up this part of ecosystems and so on by including one more podcast from the Adapt Now report that was produced by the Global Commission on Adaptation, which included Ban Ki-moon, Bill Gates, and many countries as well. Okay,